So we're here again, once again. This is May 2025. Now, every branch office has a branch report and they get a branch visit. Someone authorised from the United States or the governing body is sent to each branch office and they get a visit, and there are special announcements, and there's a talk about the branch visit. I covered last year's one actually from notes. This one's going to be a bit briefer because I missed a bit of it, and it's not available on jw.org. It's a kind of a special meeting. What Jehovah's Witnesses do, they go to the local Kingdom Hall when it's being streamed from the branch office, and then they watch it, and if it's on a different day from their Sunday meeting, it will cancel the Sunday meeting and they'll just enjoy this. In my congregation there was tea and coffees and drinks and cakes, etc. Sausage rolls, party food afterwards. It composed of a Watchtower study, it composed of a branch report, and then the special visitor. Now, I'm going to focus on the special visitor's talk because it's a lovely, dear old brother from, I believe it was the Netherlands. Now, in the branch report, they mentioned a whole load of new initiatives. There were special circuits covered by a German couple with a special language. That was really interesting. And then it expressed how the branch in its territories, the 18 odd kind of countries that the branch oversees, including 1 or 2 in Africa, islands of the sea. It covered also special announcements. There's a special assembly, special type of assembly occurring in Scotland this year, so it's rather a bit like an international, but on a much smaller scale, because Scotland's, has its own unique special assembly. So that's an exciting thing for the brothers in Scotland. So that was interesting, and some 86,000 watched the streaming. I think there's nearly double that number of publishers in the area, but what happens is they then stream the same thing on a repeat the next day, so a lot of other congregations will be watching the streaming then. But I'm going to focus on this brother because he's a dear old brother from Netherlands, and he was talking about Jehovah's heart. He said, what was it? He said, give your heart to Jehovah. Now, that means that we kind of leave everything in Jehovah's hands. We trust him to guide our lives. And he had a number of beautiful experiences that related how people were supported. One brother with his wife, he went off to work one evening. This is in Holland, the Netherlands. He went off to work one day and he never came back. Apparently being kidnapped by people. They'd driven across the border to Belgium, threw him out of the car, left him on the highway bleeding. Subsequently, he had no ID on him. Subsequently, the authorities or emergency services picked him up, took him to hospital. He'd suffered amnesia. He lost a memory of everything, of who he was, the language that he spoke in the Netherlands. Lost all memory, completely lost it. It's never returned to him. He ended up when he recovered, he ended up in some kind of rehabilitation centre for other people who were kind of aliens to the country, and eventually he forgot everything. His wife, his children, his name, all his memories, everything was gone. Eventually he was in that place and he found a truth book, and he came into the truth. Now obviously he'd already been baptised and come into the truth previously, came in the truth. He was doing some street witnessing in Belgium, and some sisters were visiting the zoo where he was preaching on the carts. They visited the zoo, the sisters, and they thought, hang on, we recognise him. that's that sister in our congregation's husband. Thought, what the hell is he doing, you know? Well, he didn't recognise them, he didn't acknowledge them, he didn't know them. And they went back, reported the matter to the elders. The elders went through the branch offices of the two countries, went and saw him. They talked to him and he expressed no knowledge at all. And then they explained to him, they took pictures, showed him pictures of his wife, his children, said, this was your life. So eventually he agreed to go and see his wife, and the elders obviously spoke to her and told her, we found your husband, but he's got no memory. So he respected that, moved back with his wife. They lived normally, but none of his memories have ever returned, including his name. So he's had to live his life in accordance with what he's been told. But his brother was making the point that Jehovah manoeuvred things so that he would find his family again, despite what had happened to him. And the point he was making was that he said, rather like the Apostle Paul had a thorn in the flesh. And he begged Jehovah, he prayed and prayed, please take this problem away from me, I can't cope with it anymore. He prayed and prayed and prayed. And Jehovah never took it away. So we have problems and Jehovah doesn't take them away, but he helps us cope with them. He finds a way to sort things out for us. And what he did with Paul was that the thorn in the flesh, he said to him in, what's the scripture? 2 Corinthians 12:7. He said, what did he say? He said, my power is displayed in your weakness. So basically what Paul was told by Jehovah is, look, by coping with it, you're making praise to me. You're making me happy. Once Paul knew that, he knew that coping with his problem was actually making such a good witness, and making Jehovah happy helped him cope with it. He says that's how we cope with our thorn in the flesh, because we've all got thorns in our flesh, all of us. So that's the way you cope with it. And then he mentions a really interesting thing. I've got it wrong round the wrong way actually, but he mentions an interesting experience. Prophet Obadiah in the Bible, during the time of Ahab and Jezebel. And Jezebel was out to kill all Jehovah's prophets and dedicated servants to God. 100 fled from her and hid in a cave. Now the prophet Obadiah was with them. He went out, somehow got out, and he brought enough food and water back to make sure they were fed in the cave so that they survived. Now Obadiah, we don't know how he got that food. There was a famine in the land, so there was a shortage of food. So anyway, what he did was an amazing task. Later, subsequently, he died. Now, he died. So we turn to, he directed us to the account in 2 Kings chapter 4. Now, once he died, his wife found herself in a precarious position. In fact, her sons and all the slaves of the household were to be sold because he had accumulated massive debt. And this is what she says. Now one of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you well know that your servant had always feared Jehovah. Now a creditor has come to take both my children and his slaves. So he must have accumulated a debt. Now it's guessed by the brother that maybe the debt was from what he did there. He'd accumulated the debt and hadn't told his wife. Well, he assumed he would keep living, but unfortunately circumstances caused him to die. So this was Elisha's advice to her. At this, Elisha said to her, what can I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? She replied, your servant has nothing at all in the house but a jar of oil. So she had nothing because there was a famine. There was a shortage of food. So he gave her an instruction. Then he said, go outside and ask ask for containers from your neighbours, empty containers. Do not limit yourself to a few. Then go in and close the door behind you. You and your sons fill all these containers and set the full ones aside. So she left him. When she closed the door behind her and her sons, they passed the containers to her, and she kept pouring. Remember the miraculous jar of the flour being restored to that widow with her son? Well, the same sort of miracle. She poured from her jar of oil and filled these massive containers up, great big containers. Now, oil was a very valuable product in Israel at the time, especially because of the famine. So she had all these big storage containers full of oil. Well, she was able then, what does it say? When the containers were full, she said to one of her sons, "Bring another one." And he said, "That's all of them, there's no more." At that, the oil stopped. She came in and told the man of the true God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay off your debts, and your sons can live from what is left." So those containers of oil enabled her to pay her debts off, pay the creditor off, saved her. Now this brother said, it's very likely that she is the wife of Obadiah. Not because it says so in Scripture, because it doesn't. It just mentions her as a wife. But he went back to a 1904 Watchtower that said, after looking into the information from Josephus, that it was very likely she was Obadiah's wife. And it also says the phraseology from the Scripture and her request is very much the same. So you've got a scriptural link, and you've got evidence from a Watchtower in 1904. I thought that was really nice that he delved back to find the answers to that. So again, he was making the point that Jehovah looks after his servants. So I thought that was a lovely thought. Whatever our trouble, Jehovah may not answer our prayers that we want him to relieve us of, because we've got a problem, but he helps us find a way of coping with it. So I thought that was lovely. And then he concluded, he concluded with Psalm 37 verse 4. So we know that Psalm 37 is, of course, the scripture Jesus gave, didn't he? He said, Psalm 37 is the meek will inherit the earth. So that's and the righteous will live forever upon it. So verse 4 says, "Find exquisite delight in Jehovah, and he will grant you the desires of your heart." Now it says there's an asterisk on delight. Find your greatest joy. So, or find your greatest joy. So if we give our hearts to Jehovah, he will grant you the desires of your heart. And that's how he finished. So what a lovely experience from this lovely older brother. Most appreciated all those years. I shed a few tears, actually. Sometimes you get a brother like that. So that was the report, the branch report. You won't be able to find it if you didn't go to the actual Zoom meeting or the actual one of the Kingdom Halls in the British branch territory. So thank you, everybody. Take care. No jacket today. It's really nice and hot in this country of ours, of Great Britain. Speak to you again.